In 1622, a Portuguese governor arranged a room with one chair in it, his own. The woman he had summoned looked at the empty floor and did not sit on it. This is the story of Nzinga, and the 30 years she spent making an empire regret that morning. She was born in the highlands of what we now call Angola, into the royal house of Ndongo. It was a kingdom of iron workers, cattle and long-distance trade, ruled by a king they called the Angola. Her father put a bow in her hands as a child and let her sit in on the business of state, which was unusual and would matter more than anyone expected. Because on the coast, the Portuguese had built a town called Luanda, and it was hungry. Not for gold, for people. Every year, raiding parties pushed further inland, and villages that had stood for centuries simply stopped existing. Ndongo fought and lost and fought again until its towns were emptied and its army was in pieces. By the time her brother took the throne, there was almost nothing left to rule. So he sent the one person in the family the Portuguese had not yet learned to ignore, his sister. She walked into Luanda with an entourage in full ceremony as an ambassador of a sovereign state. And she found a room with one chair in it. It was not an oversight, it was the whole message: kings sit, subjects stand. Nzinga did not argue. She turned and gestured to one of her own attendants. The woman knelt on the stone, and Nzinga sat on her back, upright at the governor's eye level. Then she opened negotiations as an equal, because now, physically, she was one. She got her treaty. Portugal would pull its raiders back and recognize Ndongo. She was baptized in Luanda and took a Christian name, because a signature is worth more than a principle. Portugal kept the treaty for about as long as it took her to get home. Her brother was dead within 2 years, and Nzinga took the throne herself. Rivals said a woman could not be Angola. She used the king's titles anyway and dared them to say it twice. Portugal backed a puppet against her and drove her out of Ndongo altogether. Any ordinary war would have ended there. Hers was just changing shape. She marched east and took the kingdom of Matamba and made it her fortress. From there, she did something the Portuguese could not answer. She made herself worth more alive. Every caravan route to the interior now ran through her. Trade came to her terms, or it did not come. She sent word into the plantations and the slave camps. Anyone who reached her would be free. They came in thousands, and she armed them. Her soldiers did not line up in squares to be shot at. They struck the supply lines and vanished into the hills. For years, Portuguese columns marched inland and came back with nothing but fewer men. Then she found a lever. Portugal's enemies were also on the ocean. When the Dutch took Luanda, Nzinga was already there in alliance with her army in the field. For 7 years, the slaving port on her coast belonged to somebody else. Then Brazil sent a fleet, the Dutch sailed away, and she was alone again in her 60s. She kept fighting anyway, and Portugal finally did the arithmetic. In 1657, they signed peace with her. Matamba stayed independent, and she stayed queen. She spent her last years rebuilding towns, resettling the freed, and receiving ambassadors as a head of state. She died in 1663, around 80 years old, still ruling, never conquered. 400 years later, her statue stands in the middle of Luanda. On the coast, she was never able to take back, in the country that took her name for its own resistance. If this story moved you, subscribe to the Africa Report for more forgotten history of Africa.